Okay, and we are live. Hi, Kurs. Good
Hello.
afternoon for you.
Yeah, it's good morning for me.
How are you feeling? Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. I'm feeling great. The weather's really nice out today. Weather's warming up where I live, so I'm excited about that.
That's good to hear. It's rainy and grey in Dublin, but but we're highly motivated anyways. So I'm very excited about today's topic because I think that I'm really bad at data acquisition, and as myself, I think that a lot of people struggle with data acquisition. So we've had a few people asking how to process video footage in context capture, and you are a big advocate of this practice. So tell us more about what you're going to be showing today.
Yeah, so how this started, actually, I'll jump right into it. I was at a conference in Washington, D.C., and somebody came up to me and said, can you make it from video? Can you make a 3D model from video? Now, this was back in, I believe, 2015. At that time, we weren't able to do it. But I have this problem where I say, sure, we could do it. And then I go sit in the hotel room and go crazy all night trying to figure out how to do it. So the guy said, look, outside my hotel, there's a statue. And he got into it deeper. They wanted to kind of record things on the sly. Like the guy wanted to put his phone on his waist and walk around something and video record. So that's where I was trying to explain to him, look, you want to stand, take your picture, rotate, take another picture, not move too far. And he said, look, we want to do this where people aren't noticing that we're recording. So he wanted to walk through a scene and record. So I said, go give it a shot and send me the video. So he sent me the video, and I went back to my hotel room, and it was quite, to download it from a hotel room, said it was going to take like an hour and something. So I was like, you know what, no problem. I'll go get dinner. So I went to dinner with my colleagues, and I told them I have this data set coming, and I'm excited to give it a try. And I got back to my room, and I opened up the video, and I started looking at it, and I stopped it, and I started writing an email saying, I know I said I could do this, but I don't think I can.
Do you have the video?
Yeah, so let me bring this up and explain why. He had a broken foot, so he had a cast on his foot with a boot. So he was hobbling. The video is extremely shaky on the left. He actually told me he tripped over one of the corners. So when I saw how shaky that video is on the left, I laughed and said, there's no way that I could do this. So I started writing an email.
There is no way, like if I didn't see the 3D mesh on the right, like I would be saying the same thing.
I was ready to throw in the towel, but I said, no, I wouldn't. And I spent a couple hours working on it. And the truth is, what took me a couple hours was trying to find free software to extract still images from the video. Like I said, I'm in a hotel room, so I'm just Googling things. I found some products out there that cost money. I just want to do this for a proof of concept. So the truth is, most of my time that I spent was looking for a free alternative to extract still images from, or still frames from, my video. The good news is context capture has this built in on today. So you don't need to go through the headache that I did looking for something to do it. We have it built in our software.
That's good to know.
The user was extremely impressed with these results. And I had the 3D model. You can see down the bottom right corner, the date was June of 2015. So at that time, this is what I was able to do. Also, I did scale this, and I'll talk about scale because when you're dealing with video, scaling's not as easy as it is with photos, but there's some things that we could do to help that.
Yeah, so scaling and accuracy will be my next questions, but maybe I will wait for the next example.
Yeah, no, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, we take this in steps. I say, what do you want to get out of this? And we'll look deeper as how deep we can go with this. But so as I was realizing, okay, we could take video, and this guy, walked around this and had it on his hip, and it's very shaky, but we could still do it. Probably 2 years later, I was sitting on my couch and I saw this accident in Washington, D.C. Not Washington, D.C., sorry, the state of Washington. And I saw it on the news, and I said, you know what? this helicopter's flying over the scene, and they were kind of, I wouldn't say circling by, but kind of moving along it, that I said, you know what, I could make a 3D model out of this as well. So that's what we're seeing here. This is the 3D model that we have. I created this from news footage. So it was, I believe, Channel 8 News. They showed this, from their helicopter. It wasn't made for capturing, and I'm going to talk about videos that are made for capturing 3D models, videos that are not made for 3D capture. In this case, we see I used this 18-wheeler there. I had to set a scale. Now, for something like this, we have railroad tracks, so I could scale it at 4 feet 8 inches for the gauge of railroad tracks to try to use a standard size. We have an 18-wheeler in the scene, so an 18-wheeler, roughly we could say a 9-foot cargo space. It's 8 feet 11 inches, 107 inches. So 8 feet 11 inches on the inside, say 9 feet on the outside. We could scale it that way. But then this, I noticed, was more of a cargo thing that they use on the freights. So I looked that up as well, and we see here that it was 2.44 meters, which comes out to exactly 8 feet high. So I'm able to scale that as well at 8 feet. That is what I used. I used the height of the truck to scale this. I did check it against the railroad tracks, and they look good. Here we're seeing the live video footage, so you'll see that there's people walking around in the scene.
That's what I was going to ask. How did you? How was it with the moving objects? Because I see quite a significant amount of moving objects on the video.
Yeah, that's something that's fantastic. I dealt with LiDAR scanning a lot, and anytime something's moving through the scene, you get a glimpse of it, captured as it went by the scan. When it comes to photogrammetry, because we have so many overlapping photos of an area, these objects that are moving are not in the same place from photo to photo. So because of that, that allows us, or the software, to look at it as a moving object. I've also found the same case because for the same people that I was doing that ground where there's covertly capturing video, they also shared some airplane footage from jets that have the whole heads-up display, the HUD display. And I was concerned about that creating a problem because that's static on the screen. But that also, because from photo to photo, those are in the same spot, but the photo's moving, it actually uses that, or looks at that as moving objects as well.
Interesting. And tell me a bit more about the accuracy. Like, you're scaling the project, you found several ways of scaling the project. What is the accuracy that you can expect? Like, I guess you don't do these, for very accurate purposes. Like, you're not obviously gonna, do railway design out of this 3D mesh. But how do we measure? How do we quantify the accuracy of the final 3D mesh?
So this one, I recall, like I said, I did this a couple years ago. I had the vertical scaled in, and you'd like to use a vertical scale as well as a horizontal to give you better accuracy. In this case, I remember when I measured the rails, I was about 2 inches off for the width of the rail, which in this case, just using one vertical measurement isn't so much of a big deal. I was doing this for a proof of concept. I probably could have weeded through the photos a little better, added some other scale constraints, but just to prove that I could take some video footage, meaning that it wasn't intended for 3D modeling, that it was just somebody flying over this area. I've done it with swamps and underwater stuff where somebody's just shooting video, and we could take the video and start making 3D models from it.
Yeah. Good point.
So let's get into how the model's made.
Yeah, we had actually James asking, can you extract frames using context capture? And I replied to him that you can, and that you were going to show it live. So just FYI, we have.
Yes. So I have a new block here, and.
So you are going to import the video, right? Yes. What's the video format that you can import into context capture?
MP4, AVIs. I mean, there is a list of common video formats. You're going to find that MP4 is probably the most common.
Okay.
So when I come in, it's under photos, and it's because these really are photos. These are frames that are in a photo. Now, I've always shied away from using video. Um,
Mhm.
there's a handful of negative reasons for it. One, you'll see when I bring it in, normally if I bring a photo in, we can read the metadata to it and see the camera and the sensor size and the focal length. We can get that information from it. When you're dealing with video, that information is not going to be in the still frames that we extract from it.
Okay.
Also, really just really like the still frames, the quality of them, you're losing some. So when you think about a wedding, you have a videographer and a photographer. Uh,
Mhm.
Nobody goes to the video guy and says, "Hey, I want to take this frame right here and blow it up to a big wall size mural." The quality isn't going to be there. I've done enough with video when I'm moving. You get some motion blur in there and stuff like that. So I shy away from that. Uh, you don't have geolocation. So normally with your phone, if you're outside, you have geolocation. Things are relatively to scale. When
Mhm.
you're in this case, there's nothing to scale,
Yeah.
which I'm working with some plant environments where they have engineers going into a plant environment and they're just using their iPhone to video record walking around an asset. And they're using my techniques of how you capture it. Go up high, a full circle around, go down low, a full circle around, and in the middle. That will give you enough capture. Then you need to go in and break down how often you're pulling out your images. So in that
Mhm.
case, if you're going to go in with video, I do recommend using QR codes. We can place QR codes and put them, 10 meters apart from each other, go through video record, and the software will all automatically scale that for us. So
Okay.
that is a benefit to using QR codes. So these are things, if you're going to go with video, there's pros and cons. The pro is you're capturing it really, really fast. You're able to go in and out and leave. You're also not concerned on how much you overlap. You could deal with that back in the office. But then on the downside is scaling and quality.
Yeah. So let me ask you then, because that sounded like, oh, get away from the video capture, because you're not gonna get the same image quality as with pictures. So tell me, in your opinion, what would be like a good application? So when will you use video capture instead of image capture?
So I would use video capture if time is of the essence.
Okay.
Um, if I know that I have to get into a scene and out real fast, as I mentioned on my last call, I had my wife and daughter in the car waiting for me. I said I forgot something in the house that we're building. So I ran in, I video recorded the dining room real quick that we had an open floor. So I wanted to see that. It took less than 30 seconds and I was back in the car and driving. That is very helpful. The downside was things weren't to scale. So I had to go in and say, all right, I know this is 10 feet from here to here. So I had to add that. I am seeing now that with video capture, the quality is really, really, really good. So kind of the thing that I was saying before where you lose some quality, I think our software has eliminated that problem. We're taking
Mhm.
video still extremely good quality.
So it's about the scalability, so that you need to consider how you're going to scale the project when you're doing video capture, and then time obviously will be one of the key benefits of the video capture versus image capture.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And also you have to think about when you're capturing. So let me show you how I bring the photos in. Um,
Okay.
Here's the video input. I'm going to browse to a file that I have, um, and I'll just take one of these. We see right away it wants to default it out to 100 photos. Okay. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that's our default, and most scenes that works fine. There are going to be times where you really have to look at how it was captured. So I showed two things to you today. One was somebody walking around that statue, and their purpose was to walk around this to capture it to make a 3D model. I
Yeah.
also have the railroad where somebody was flying over just to show the scene and talk about what's going on there. Their intention was not for 3D capture. And I'll show you those results of how you deal with each of those. In this
Yeah.
case, video was meant for 3D capture. So if I video and we see here, this person is going around. This was Ruben, a colleague of mine. He went around his motorcycle and he did exactly what you should do for capture.
Mm-hmm.
Held it at that same elevation. He circled around at a consistent speed, and he overlapped where he started and stopped. That's extremely important too, to do that. We also see here he's changing his height a little. Now his second pass around, he's coming down a little lower. This is very helpful when you're capturing in this fashion. Other ways, like here, this purpose was not meant for 3D modeling capture. This was somebody flying a drone, trying to look at a house, really just get their bearings around it, see the house from different angles, maybe for some inspection purposes. But we see the intention here with this flight is not for a 3D capture. If you were doing a house like this, I would recommend orbiting around this, where it's creating a consistent video at the same level. What we're seeing here is there's times where the video moves fast from one angle to another. Also times where it's sitting facing the same place for several seconds. So if I'm pulling out every second, or a snapshot every second, a frame, then I have like 6, 7 in a row right here, the exact same angle, the same pictures. This video, I would go through and kind of decide, okay, from second 4 to 9, I'm going to use that and go every half a second. And then same from time 36 seconds, 40 seconds, I may go every quarter of a second, because it may be a lot more work to really take a video like this and break it down. I'll show you the results of each, which with our software, it still does an incredible job. So really, it's very forgiving. So if you don't fly correctly, if you're shooting video, like I said, this is to help somebody. So now if this person was doing this for 3D modeling, I could take this video and show them the results that they're getting. So let's talk about what I bring that movie in. If I want every 100 photos to come through, it's showing me in a 36-second video, here's how I get 100. Now, you'll see over on the side here, I have 13 photos, 27 photos, 55, 103, and 200. I did the same test running different amounts of photos. Now, our standard or default is 100 photos, but if you're doing a very large scene, you may need 400 photos. If you're doing a very small scene, you may just need 13 or 15, you know, in that range. So let me show you how I change this. When I see this is at 100 photos, if I did a test and said, you know what, there's too much space in between these photos, I need 200 photos. You know, I need to get twice as many. So I would look at this as 3.66, and I may make this, you know, 6.5. Oh, that's if I want to go lower. So sorry, 1.5 brings me up higher. And as I want to bring these numbers higher, I can keep changing these numbers to lower numbers. So if I go 0.15 or 1, I'm down to 300. So I would do this and change the every second rule, you know, to more space in between my images.
And in terms of the sorry, I have a question, and then I want to read a few comments that we're getting in. But in terms of that, when you were saying that you know, the drone was staying still and you will get multiple pictures with the same scene, I guess that you could easily remove them afterwards, or what is the impact of having those, you know, repetitive images?
So this is 100 pictures here. And we see the quality is really good. I mean, it picked up a lot of detail. If we look at the texture, we can see these hedges are all individual. Now, these areas we see here, there's some really close. I could go in and erase them. We could go into our AT process here, and I could look at these photos. We can blow them up. So I look at my photo size. Blow them up to something workable, and I can come in here and select them. If I wanted to remove a photo like this, I would just hit the delete key. The benefit of removing photos like this, it would increase your time. Time. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry, because James is asking, actually, apart from processing overheads, are there any disadvantage of using more input photos? Like I guess it's just potentially like a longer processing time, but there is no other, you know, negative impact of having more input photos, is it?
No, and honestly, sometimes too many start hurting things.
Okay.
Head, you give me too much information, I'll get a headache. But same thing with our software. If it's too redundant, it'll start confusing things. You don't need same pictures at same size. Here we see using that default 100, it kind of pulled out the pictures. They're spaced apart pretty nice. Because it was free flight, you could see that there's no consistent spacing in between all your photos. But here I can using a default of 100 work very nice as we again look at the texture. Now I went back to just use 25 photos, and we could say that this looks pretty good too, but we see the hedges are all blending together.
Yeah.
And we also went with 300 photos, and 300 photos, and I did some side-by-side comparison.
Oh.
Honestly, between the 300 and the 100, they look the same. See here with the 300, I'm able to see in between the brush, they're kind of weeding together a little, and here in between these columns, they're bleeding together. But also at the 100, we're having that same effect. So this tells me using 100 or 300 for this is not making a difference, and it's because the way this flight is kind of spaced out.
But it's also like comes down to the application. Like we're not going to start meshing and doing like advanced workflows with these 3D meshes. I guess that is not the point. So right. It doesn't make much of a difference in the final accuracy of the 3D mesh.
Correct. So we see here also, time. It comes down to that balance of quality and time. And cost, because if you're using the cloud processing, the more gigapixels you're processing, there's a price associated to that. The more photos you're using, there's price and time and all those things. So if we look at when I use the default of 100 photos, it took under 3 minutes to make this mesh.
Yeah.
To me, that's perfectly fine. 100 photos, 3 minutes. I'm happy with that. If I go up to 300 photos, we're now at 8 minutes. So we're almost tripling the time. And you saw the quality wasn't 3 times better. It was nearly identical. Then we go down to 25 photos. That took less than a minute. So that's real fast. But we also noticed that we did lose some quality. Okay. So 100%. This is where you want to find that happy balance. Now let's talk more about a structured data set where this Ruben went through, a colleague of ours, and he went through and he did his rotation around. So let's start with our default 100 photos. After I run the AT, we look here and these, let's blow these up a little bit to 80 or 70. So we can see here, now he circled around. We also see that he overlapped from where he started to where he ended. So he did that nice overlap. He kept it the same elevation pretty much. So, I mean, this is something you'd see in a drone, holding that same elevation. Think about that same concept.
Yeah.
He followed our acquisition guide perfectly. He did his overlap. He actually did 4 different levels of this, 4 different heights. And I'll talk about that because you want to get into the detail of this. But I take one loop around and I use the default setting of 100. Now, 100, honestly, this looks like nice spacing to me. It's probably a little overkill, but something with a lot of detail like this, you want to get more photos. When I ran this, even down at 13, we look at 13 photos, how they go around it. A lot bigger spacing, but I'm able to see what 13 images do, what 27 images do. Now we get them closer together. 55, we get even closer.
Yeah.
And I basically worked on this till I got to a level that I was happy with, which 100 looked really good. So now let's look at the results from the 50. All right, so this says 13 here, and then I call it 50 because what this was, I used the one loop to calculate whether I wanted to do roughly 12 images, 50 images, 100 images, 200 images. I went that fashion. So when I took the 13 images around one pass, I grouped all 4 levels together, which gave me a total of 50 photos. So we see here I have 50 photos. We see the spacing between this photo and this photo is rather large, which tells me maybe the speed here went a little faster as opposed to the speed moving around here. This is all relative to the speed. But we see that the quality just from 50 total photos looks pretty good.
It looks really
Yeah, I would be happy with this. And when we look at that, that only took 6 minutes to create.
Yeah, like this project actually he tried. I think this was the first project he tried, and the first data capture, I think he did 800 pictures, and then the second one 200 pictures. And I'm looking at this, and it's only like a bunch of pictures, and the quality looks very similar. So that's amazing. That's really, really good practice.
Yeah, so you want to find that sweet spot. The sweet
Yeah,
spots that don't lose quality, but you're also not spinning your wheels, wasting time.
yeah,
Look at 100 photos for that same bike. Now look at these photos going around. We have a lot more. We can see a lot more photos. We're covering this area down here that before was missing a little bit. But once again, we go in. I think the quality all around is really, really good with this
very
model.
impressive. Can I interrupt you, Kurt, for a sec? Christopher is saying, so you will approach this much like using a handheld scanner with smooth capture and overlap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had somebody out in the field one day, and they had a surveyor. He was at a comm box, a communication box, had it open, and they wanted to create a 3D model of it. So I explained to his boss how to do it. He called him out in the field, was telling him how to do it. They sent me the pictures. I pulled them up, and I laughed and said, they're not overlapping. I can see the wires in there, and right at the edge of the photo, it's here. I don't even see it in this photo. There's no overlap. So it literally took 4 or 5 times that I kept going back saying, there's not enough overlap, do more. And every time kept getting better. And after the 5th time, I said, all right, stop. Put your phone on video record and just act like you're spray painting the inside of this communication box. And he went left. He went left, right, down, over, kept going back and forth in that fashion. I took the images, I pulled out 100. That was too much. I pulled out 50, ended up getting it down that I had a nice model. And then I took those still images and sent it back to him and said, look, still images. And you'll see when you look at, when we go in and look at these photos, let me pull up in the frames. I tell somebody it should look like, like I used to draw in my biology book, the stick figure. When I hit the arrow key on my keyboard, I should see this moving in a very jerky fashion around this. See how there's consistent spacing from photo to photo. I'm getting all that overlap. So this is when you give these photos back to somebody, you'd say, look, you shot video just walking around. But if you were to take still pictures, this is how you would do it. You would stand here, take a still picture, take a step to the right, take a still picture, take a step to the right, take a still picture.
Yeah, but I think this is I'm fascinated, because if I think about on-site visits, actually we had someone, Robert, saying like this sounds like for a surveyor walking a site internally on a planning visit, this could work really well. I think like any job that requires an on-site visit, be it for an inspection, be it for a preliminary on-site visit, whatever it is. Instead of like taking pictures or having someone that maybe is not familiar with photogrammetry, just capture a video, and then you can have that, digital twin, the basis of your digital twin back in the office, so you can do that on-site visit virtually. I think that's fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah, right here you can see where you should stand to take your photos, how to get the proper overlap. This is a great example to show somebody. It's also, I've dealt with some catastrophes where they've gone in, bridges wiped out from flooding, and they wanted to create the 3D model, and they took their photos, and I recommended to them, and I'm glad they did this. I said, before you leave the site, do a quick video, fly around the site. And what happened was when we modeled the bridge, there was a section of the bridge that the sun was right in the camera. So those photos got kicked out and I couldn't use them. So I went back to the video footage, found between the seconds of where that part of the bridge was, I extracted those images, we put them in, and we were able to complete the bridge. So it's very good. I wouldn't, if you can take still pictures, please do, but try to always record video, and it helps fill in the gaps if you miss the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I see we're at our time. Are there any more questions?
So we had not questions. We had. I'm actually going to read it out loud because I think it's nice. Ross was mentioning I did this a few years ago using a video taken on site from a UAV. Worked great for working with a pilot, not experiencing photogrammetry. We were just saying that.
Yep.
Quality suffered due to GSD, ground sample distance, but it still came out great. So yeah, I think that was the last comment we got. But I think there was a lot of interest. Oh, we got a question from Michael now. Can color grade video for better results?
What was that about the video?
Can color grade video for better results? Color grade video? I don't know if.
I don't know.
No, not.
I could say, as you see, the video I used was poor quality because it was, you know, they put it up on their website in this little window, so they probably lowered the resolution from their original footage. Quality does matter for it. Yeah, and color helps also because we see there with that big orange container. That made it real easy for me to find corners of it, and the photos for me to pick key points at the top and bottom of it so that I could scale it.
Okay. So Simone is also asking, in the past, I have created a single 3D photogrammetric image using both ground photos and drone video. The result was not exactly what I expected. Does the latest version of Contest Capture handle the photo video hybrid better than previous version?
Personally, I feel that it's been great all along. I showed you some things that I did back in 2015, so that's 6 years ago. The quality of our meshes always get better, even though we're almost hitting perfect. So I don't know how much better we can get. But yeah, I mean, it's a high quality mesh, and you know,
I think that his question is more on the have you tried to use photos and video together, so like extracting the frames from a video, and how does it work? Is it just
so that's what I did with the one bridge that they circled around. They took still pictures. They used actually they didn't use flight planning software, but they overlapped their photos correctly. They just had the issue where the sun was in place, so I used video from that section, pulled out the video frames, and it's stitched together there. I would say the quality probably wasn't as good. It wasn't very noticeable, but if I looked in, I'm sure I could see some problem. But I've done video connecting with still imagery, and it does work. So I'd ask somebody to reach out to us to give them a hand.
Of course. And if you need an evaluation license, Simone, feel free to reach out to me and I can give you that. I think that's all questions we have today. Thank you so much, Kurt. This was very instructional. I learned a lot. Thank you all so much for joining. And again, stay tuned. We are gonna show next week LumenRT, so how to work with 3D mesh coming from Contest Capture into LumenRT. We'll do that with Swavik. So that will be our next live.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Kurt. We need to talk about what we're gonna show in a few weeks.
All right. We will. I did some models from outside hotel windows, so I was thinking about showing that. But I'm always open to suggestions too. If there's users that want to call in, this is outside the box. So these are things that I don't do in my daily life. Like here, train crashes and stuff that isn't part of my job that I deal with. But I saw, this information out there and saw that we could capture it and use it to our advantage.
But that's a really good idea. Actually, we should ask the people joining these live events what they want to see, what they want to hear from us. So maybe I'll share a poll or kind of like a survey, and we can gather some feedback and see what they want to see out of the box.
All right.
Cool. Thank you so much, Kurt. Talk to you very soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
You too.